I was standing in my study at 11:30 p.m. when I heard the floorboards creak outside my bedroom door. Been awake for 3 hours, sitting in complete darkness with my laptop open, watching a live feed from the camera I'd installed behind the air vent in my hallway. The night vision showed everything in crisp green-white detail. My son Michael's fiancée, Sarah, had just emerged from the guest room wearing black leggings and a dark hoodie. She stood completely still for almost 2 minutes, listening. Then she moved toward my bedroom door. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I didn't move. I'd taken 2 Ambien bottles from my medicine cabinet that afternoon and replaced the pills with vitamins. At dinner, Sarah had watched me take 2 pills with my evening tea, her eyes tracking the movement of my hand to my mouth with an intensity that made my skin crawl. She thought I was unconscious. The camera showed her testing my bedroom doorknob slowly, carefully. It opened. She'd told me last week that the door had been sticking, that she'd noticed it when she brought up my laundry. She'd even offered to WD-40 the hinges for me. I'd let her. Now I understood why she disappeared into my bedroom. I counted to 60, then switched camera feeds to the one I'd installed in the corner of my bedroom, disguised as a smoke detector. Sarah was moving through my room with a small flashlight, the beam playing across my dresser, my nightstand, my closet. She paused at my bed, holding the light on my face for a long moment. I'd placed pillows under my blankets arranged to look like a sleeping body. The low light and her adrenaline would do the rest. She moved to my closet, pushed aside my winter coats, and knelt down. Her fingers found the safe I'd installed 15 years ago when my wife Margaret was still alive. It was a floor safe, bolted into the concrete foundation, covered by a false panel and a section of carpet. Sarah knew exactly where it was. I watched her pull out her phone, open what looked like a notes app, and begin entering the combination. The safe had a mechanical lock, no electronics, no Bluetooth vulnerabilities, just 5 numbers that had never been written down anywhere except in my memory. 4-17-29-31-8, Margaret's birthday and the day we'd gotten married, but 3 weeks ago I'd noticed the safe had been tampered with. Small scratches around the dial that hadn't been there before, dust patterns disturbed. I'd started paying attention then, started noticing other things. Sarah asking detailed questions about my finances. Sarah volunteering to help organize my filing cabinet. Sarah suggesting I was getting forgetful, maybe I should write down important numbers just in case. Smiled and played along. Meanwhile, I contacted an old colleague from my years as an aerospace engineer, a man who now ran a private security company. Within 48 hours, my house had 5 hidden cameras, a separate encrypted recording system in my basement, and new locks on everything that mattered, and I'd changed the safe combination. The new code was 830-129-17 the same numbers reversed. A test. If someone had been spying on me entering the combination, they'd have the numbers but not the sequence. On the monitor, Sarah was entering numbers slowly, carefully. She tried the combination once. The safe didn't open. She tried again, slower this time. Nothing. Her frustration was visible even through the green-tinted night vision. She pulled out her phone again, checked her notes, tried a 3rd time, still nothing. She sat back on her heels and I could see her lips moving. She was talking to herself or maybe praying. Then she tried the numbers in reverse order. The safe clicked open. I felt something cold settle in my chest. She hadn't just stumbled onto those numbers. She'd watched me, studied me. Probably had been standing somewhere out of sight, using her phone to record me entering the combination. The kind of planning that spoke to calculation, not desperation. Sarah pulled the safe door wide and reached inside. I kept most of my important documents in a safety deposit box at the bank, Margaret's jewelry, my will, property deeds, but I'd left some items in the home safe deliberately. $8,000 in cash in $100 bills, 3 bearer bonds worth $50,000 each, my grandfather's gold Rolex, my military medals from my Navy years, and a handwritten ledger that appeared to detail offshore accounts totaling $1.2 million. The ledger was fake. The accounts didn't exist, but it looked real enough to fool someone who wanted to believe it. Sarah pulled everything out, spreading it on my closet floor. She picked up the ledger first, using her phone's flashlight to photograph each page. Then she carefully photographed the bearer bonds front and back. She stuffed the cash into her hoodie pocket. The bonds went into a manila folder she'd apparently brought with her. The Rolex went into her other pocket. She left the medals. Then she stood up, closed the safe, spun the dial, and carefully replaced the false panel and carpet section. She backed out of my closet, swept her light around the room one more time, and left. I watched her walk down the hallway, past the guest room where my son was presumably sleeping, and down the stairs. The ground floor cameras picked her up, moving through the kitchen to the back door. She stepped outside into my backyard, walked to the property line where a section of privacy fence had a loose board, and slipped through into the adjacent alley. A car was waiting, a dark sedan with the license plate obscured. Sarah got into the passenger seat. The interior light came on briefly and I saw a man behind the wheel, not Michael, someone older, heavier. They talked for maybe 3 minutes. Sarah handed him the folder with the bonds. He gave her what looked like a phone or small tablet. Then the car drove away and Sarah walked back through the fence into my yard. She was inside within 5 minutes, back in the guest room, and the house went quiet. I sat in my study until 4 a.m. backing up all the camera footage to 3 separate encrypted drives. Then I sent copies to my security consultant and my attorney. Only after that did I allow myself to feel the full weight of what I'd just witnessed. My son's fiancée had robbed me, had been planning to rob me, and she wasn't working alone. The next morning I came downstairs at my usual time, 7:15 a.m. Michael was already in the kitchen making coffee. He looked tired but smiled when he saw me. "Morning, Dad. Sleep well?" "Like a rock," I said. "Those new pills really knock me out." Sarah appeared a moment later wearing yoga pants and one of Michael's old college sweatshirts. She looked fresh, energetic, and gave me a warm smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning, Richard. I was thinking of making pancakes for breakfast. Your favorite, right? That would be wonderful, dear." I sat at the kitchen table and watched her move around my kitchen with the confidence of someone who already considered this her home. She'd been living here for 3 weeks. She and Michael had driven up from Phoenix to spend the month before their wedding with me. The wedding was set for 6 weeks from now. A small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens, reception at the country club. I'd offered to pay for everything. $50,000, money I'd saved for exactly this purpose. Money I now knew would probably disappear into whatever scheme Sarah was running. Michael sat across from me, scrolling through his phone. My son was 32, a structural engineer working for a mid-sized firm in Phoenix. Smart, hardworking kind, but he'd always been too trusting. He dated Sarah for 8 months before proposing. I'd met her only twice before they decided to stay with me. Both times something had felt off, not anything I could articulate, just a sense that her smiles were performances. That she was always calculating, always measuring. Margaret would have seen it immediately. My wife had possessed an almost supernatural ability to read people. But Margaret had been gone for 4 years and Michael had been lonely and Sarah had been exactly what he'd wanted to see: beautiful, attentive, interested in family, eager to be part of his life. "Dad, I was thinking," Michael said, looking up from his phone, "maybe this weekend we could go through some of Mom's things. Sarah and I were talking and she'd love to have something of Mom's to wear at the wedding, maybe a piece of jewelry or something." I kept my expression neutral. "That's a lovely idea. Most of your mother's good jewelry is in the safety deposit box downtown. We could go Monday morning when the bank opens." Sarah's smile flickered for just a moment. "Oh, that's okay. I don't want anything valuable, just something personal, maybe something you keep here at home." "Most of what's here is costume jewelry," I said, "but we can certainly look." She turned back to the stove and I saw her shoulders tense slightly. She'd been expecting me to offer access to the safe to make it easy. After breakfast, Michael left to meet some old high school friends for golf. Sarah claimed she had a headache and went upstairs to lie down. I gave her 30 minutes, then climbed the stairs quietly and stood outside the guest room door. I could hear her voice, low and urgent. She was on the phone. "No, the bonds are perfect, but we need to move faster. He keeps everything locked up." I know, but the wedding money is guaranteed. 50,000 cash, yes, before the ceremony. I can get the documents by then." I moved away silently and went to my study. I called my attorney, Donald Pritchard. We'd known each other for 35 years. He answered on the second ring. "Richard, your security consultant sent me the footage last night. I've watched it 3 times, and it's damning. Clear video, clear audio, clear intent. The bearer bonds alone make this grand theft. Crossing state lines to sell them would add federal charges. I don't want to destroy my son's life, Donald." "Then we need to be strategic. Do you know who was in that car?" "No, but I'm working on it." I'd already sent the license plate partial and a screenshot of the driver to my security consultant. He had connections with law enforcement databases that I didn't ask questions about. "We should also consider," Donald said carefully, "that this may be bigger than simple theft. If she's photographing documents, gathering intelligence about your finances, there may be identity theft involved. Bank fraud. These are serious federal crimes, Richard. I understand. Do you want me to contact the police?" "Not yet. Give me a week. I need to understand the full scope of what she's planning." Donald was quiet for a moment. "You're gathering evidence. I'm protecting my son. If I call the police now, Sarah disappears, Michael loses his fiancée, and we never know how deep this goes. If I wait, if I document everything, we can present a complete case that might actually wake Michael up. He's not going to want to see it. I know, but he needs to." Over the next 5 days, I watched Sarah like a scientist observing a specimen under glass. She was good, professionally good. She asked casual questions about my financial advisor's name, my accountant's office location, whether I kept duplicate keys anywhere. She offered to help clean out my garage, organize my basement, even suggested scanning important documents onto my computer for safekeeping. Every offer was a probe. Every question was reconnaissance. I played along. I gave her useless information. I let her help me organize a filing cabinet full of decade-old tax returns, while I kept everything current locked in my attorney's office. I even let her watch me enter a combination into a dummy safe I'd installed in my bedroom closet, a cheap lockbox containing $500 and some fake stock certificates. She photographed everything when she thought I wasn't looking. Meanwhile, my security consultant Ray Martinez was building a dossier on Sarah Chen. That was her name before she'd become Sarah Johnson for Michael. Before that, she'd been Sarah Roberts. Before that, Sarah Mitchell. 4 names in 7 years, 3 broken engagements, 2 civil suits for fraud that had been settled out of court. 1 arrest for identity theft that had been pleaded down to a misdemeanor. She was a professional. This was what she did. The man in the car was named Thomas Greer. He'd served 2 years for wire fraud and was Sarah's uncle or possibly her father. Records were unclear. He'd been arrested 3 times for running romance scams targeting elderly widowers. They were a team. I showed the file to Donald. He read it silently, his expression darkening. Your son doesn't know any of this. Michael ran a basic background check. She told him she had a crazy ex who'd posted fake information online. He believed her. Richard, we need to tell him. Not yet. He's planning to marry a con artist in 5 weeks. I know, and if I tell him now, he'll defend her. He'll say I'm being paranoid, that I never liked her, that I'm trying to control his life. He's said all of that before about other things. But if I show him video evidence, if I show him her pattern of behavior, if I catch her in the act, he can't deny it. Donald removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. This is going to devastate him. I know, but it's better than letting him marry her. The surveillance continued. Sarah made 2 more trips to the safe, once when I was supposedly at a doctor's appointment, once when I'd claimed I was attending a friend's funeral. Both times she tried the combination she'd recorded. Both times she failed because I'd changed it. The second time I watched her sit in my closet for almost minutes staring at the safe in visible frustration. She was running out of time. The wedding was 4 weeks away. Whatever endgame she'd planned required access to my assets before the ceremony. On the 8th day she made her move. Michael and I were having dinner. Sarah had claimed she was meeting a college friend for coffee. I pretended to get drowsy after my second glass of wine, excused myself to bed early, and took the fake sleeping pills she'd watched me swallow. 20 minutes later she came home. Michael was in his room on a video call with his work team. Sarah came upstairs, checked on me. I kept my breathing slow and steady, then went to the guest room. 30 minutes passed. Then she emerged, walked to my room and entered. This time she went straight to the safe. She pulled out a small device, an electronic lock pick, the kind that cycles through combinations using an algorithm. High-end equipment, maybe $3,000 on the black market. She attached it to the safe's dial and turned it on. The algorithm would take hours to crack a 5-digit combination. Sarah settled in to wait, sitting cross-legged in my closet with her phone scrolling social media while the machine did its work. At 2:30 a.m. the safe clicked open. Sarah grabbed everything, the fake ledger, the dummy bonds I'd replaced the real ones with, the cash I'd deliberately left as bait. She photographed the contents of a fireproof document box, unaware that everything inside was decades old. Then she made a critical mistake. She called her partner. Tommy, yeah, I got in. No, he's completely out. Yeah, the ledger shows accounts in the Caymans worth at least $1 million. I need you to set up the transfers before the wedding. I'll have him sign the power of attorney documents next week when we do the wedding planning. Yeah, while he's drunk. Tommy, this is it. This is the big one. No, he's too old and trusting. His son's an idiot too. Every word was captured by the bedroom camera's audio system. She hung up. She closed the safe. She left. I waited until 4 a.m., then sent all the footage, 8 days of documentation, to Donald and Ray. Then I got up, went to my study, and began preparing. Monday morning, I drove to the police station. Detective Lisa Morales was a 20-year veteran of the Financial Crimes Division. She listened to my story without interrupting, watched 30 minutes of edited footage on her laptop, and read through the background report Ray had compiled. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Mr. Harrison, you've built a federal case. Grand theft, identity fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. If she follows through on the power of attorney scheme, we can add elder abuse and possibly even more charges. I want her arrested before she can hurt anyone else. But I need you to do something for me first. What? I need to show my son. If you arrest her now, he'll think this is a misunderstanding, that I overreacted, that she's innocent. He needs to see what she is. Morales frowned. That's a risky play. She could run. She won't. She's too close to the payoff. The wedding is 3 weeks away. She thinks she has me completely fooled. You want to do a controlled confrontation? Yes, Morales considered this. We'd need to monitor it. He destroys evidence or tries to flee. I understand. But my son deserves to see the truth from me, not from a courtroom 6 months from now. She made me wait while she consulted with her sergeant in the district attorney's office. 2 hours later they agreed. They'd monitor my house, be ready to intervene, but they'd give me 48 hours to handle it myself. I drove home feeling like I was carrying stones in my chest. That evening I asked Michael and Sarah to join me in my study after dinner. I'd set up my laptop with the video footage queued up. Ray Martinez was parked outside in an unmarked van with recording equipment. Detective Morales was 2 blocks away with backup. Michael sat on the sofa, confused. Sarah sat next to him, playing concern perfectly. Dad, what's this about? You're scaring me. I didn't sit down. 3 weeks ago I installed a security system in this house. 5 cameras covering every entrance, the hallways, my bedroom and my study. Sarah's face went completely still. Michael laughed nervously. Why would you need cameras? This is the safest neighborhood in, because someone changed my safe combination while I was at the doctor's office, I said. Someone who knew where the safe was, who'd been watching me enter the code, who'd been systematically gathering information about my finances. Dad, Michael, I need you to watch this. I turned the laptop screen toward them and pressed play. The footage showed Sarah entering my bedroom at 2 a.m., showed her kneeling at the safe, showed her using the electronic lock pick, showed her removing the contents and photographing everything. The audio played clearly, her conversation with Tommy, her description of me as too old and trusting, her plan to forge a power of attorney. Michael watched in complete silence. His face went from confused to disbelieving to pale. Sarah didn't move. She sat frozen, her expression now completely blank. When the video ended, Michael turned to her slowly. Sarah, she didn't answer. Sarah, what the hell was that? Michael, it's not what it looks like. You broke into my father's safe. His voice cracked. You were planning to steal from him, from us. I was protecting us. She shifted tactics immediately, tears appearing. Baby, your father has all this money hidden away and he was never going to tell you about it. I was trying to find out what you're entitled to, what we're entitled to, by robbing him while he slept. He's old, Michael. He's not thinking clearly anymore. Someone needs to manage his finances before he loses everything. Stop. I said it quietly but with enough force that she fell silent. Your real name is Sarah Chen. Before that, Sarah Roberts and Sarah Mitchell. You've run this scam 3 times before, romance fraud targeting men with assets. You were arrested in 2019 for identity theft. Your partner, Thomas Greer, is a convicted felon. All the color drained from her face. Michael stood up. Is that true? Sarah looked between us. Her tears dried up instantly, and for the first time I saw her real face, calculating, cold, angry. You think you're so smart, she said to me. Setting up cameras, playing detective, you have no idea what you've just done. I documented 8 days of criminal activity. I have evidence of grand theft, conspiracy, attempted fraud. You have nothing that will stick. I'll say you're a confused old man with dementia. I'll say you invited me to help manage your finances. I'll say Michael gave me permission to access the safe. No, Michael's voice was barely a whisper. No, I never. Sarah, how could you? She stood up, ignoring him completely now, focused on me. I want immunity. I walk away from this, you drop everything and I disappear, or I make this a media circus. Elderly man falsely accuses his son's fiancée of theft. I'll destroy your reputation, your relationship with Michael, everything. The police are outside, I said calmly. They've been listening to this entire conversation. Detective Morales will be here in approximately 2 minutes to arrest you for multiple felony counts. Sarah's expression didn't change, but I saw her hand move toward her phone. Don't, I said. Ray Martinez is monitoring all cell traffic in a 3-block radius. If you try to warn Thomas Greer, they'll arrest him too. For the first time, genuine fear crossed her face. Michael collapsed back onto the sofa, his head in his hands. Dad, I'm so sorry. You didn't know, son. I should have seen it. I should have. The doorbell rang. I walked to the front door and let Detective Morales inside. She had 2 uniformed officers with her. Sarah Chen, you're under arrest for grand theft, conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted identity theft. Morales read her rights while the officers cuffed her. Sarah said nothing, her face a mask as they led her out. She looked back at Michael one last time. You'll regret this, both of you. Then she was gone. Michael stayed in the study for almost an hour, not speaking. I sat with him, not offering empty comfort. There was nothing I could say that would make this easier. Finally, he looked at me with red eyes. How long did you know? 3 weeks. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Would you have believed me? He was quiet for a long moment. No, I would have defended her. I would have said you were being paranoid. I know. You let me stay with her. Let me keep planning the wedding. I needed you to see the truth, not hear it from me. See it. Michael closed his eyes. I feel like an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're trusting. That's not a flaw, Michael. It's just dangerous with the wrong people. She was going to marry me and rob you blind. Yes, did she ever care about me at all? I wanted to lie, wanted to give him some comfort, but he deserved honesty. I don't think so, son. I'm sorry. He nodded slowly, accepting it. What happens now? The district attorney will prosecute. Sarah and her partner will likely face 5 to 10 years. You'll need to give a statement about what you knew and when you knew it. They'll verify you weren't involved. And then you go back to Phoenix. You rebuild. You learn to trust again, but more carefully. What about you? I'll be here, same as always. Michael looked at me with something between gratitude and grief. You protected me, Dad, even though it meant watching me get hurt. That's what fathers do. The trial took 4 months. Sarah pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange. for testifying against Thomas Greer. She received 3 years in prison and full restitution, $240,000 that she'd never be able to pay. Greer received 7 years. Michael attended the sentencing. Sarah wouldn't look at him. Afterward, we had lunch at a diner near the courthouse. Michael ordered coffee and barely touched his sandwich. "I've been seeing a therapist," he said. "She says I have a pattern. That I trust too quickly, that I ignore red flags because I want to believe people are good. That's not wrong, Michael. It almost cost you everything. But it didn't, because we're family, because we protect each other." He smiled faintly. "You protected me. I almost let her rob you blind. You didn't know. That's the point of con artists. They're good at what they do. I should have listened when you said something felt off, and next time you will." We finished lunch. Michael drove back to Phoenix the next day. We talked on the phone twice a week. Slowly, gradually, I watched him start to trust himself again. 18 months later, Michael met someone new. Honor was a civil engineer from his office, quiet and smart, with a dry sense of humor that made him laugh. He brought her to visit me for Thanksgiving. I liked her immediately, not because she was perfect, no one is, but because she was genuine. She asked real questions. She listened to real answers. She didn't perform over dinner. She asked me about my Navy service, about my years in aerospace engineering, about Margaret. She looked at family photos and remembered names. When Michael went to get dessert from the kitchen, she helped me clear the table. "He talks about you constantly," she said. "He says you saved his life." I just showed him the truth. That's the same thing sometimes. I watched her carefully. "Michael told you about Sarah." He did. He was honest about everything. That's why I knew I could trust him. Smart woman. She understood that the scars we carry teach us how to fight better. When they left on Sunday, Michael hugged me longer than usual. "Thanks, Dad." "For what?" "For not letting me make the biggest mistake of my life. That's what fathers do, son." He drove away with Honor beside him, and I stood on the porch watching until the car disappeared. The house felt quiet, but it wasn't lonely. I'd protected what mattered. I'd taught my son a hard lesson that would keep him safer for the rest of his life, and that was enough. 6 months later, Michael called me with news. He and Honor were engaged. The wedding would be small, just close family and friends. He asked if I'd be his best man. Of course, I said. I'd be honored. "And Dad, thank you for everything." "You already thanked me." "I know, but I need to say it again. You could have let me marry her. You could have said it was my choice, my mistake to make. But you didn't. You fought for me even when I wouldn't have fought for myself." I felt something tight in my chest, grief and love mixed together. "Michael, you're my son. I'll always fight for you." "I know. That's what makes you different from most people. You don't just say you care, you prove it." After we hung up, I sat in my study for a long time. The cameras were still installed, but I rarely checked them anymore. The safe had been replaced with a safety deposit box. The house was just a house again, but I'd learned something through all of this. I'd learned that protection isn't just about locks and alarms and surveillance. It's about being willing to see the hard truths, to act on them, and to let the people you love face reality even when it hurts them. I'd learned that love sometimes means watching someone you care about suffer, because the alternative, letting them walk into disaster, is worse. The wedding took place on a Saturday afternoon in October at a vineyard outside Phoenix. 70 guests, simple decorations, Honor in a cream-colored dress that Margaret would have loved. Michael cried when she walked down the aisle. So did I. During the reception, Honor's father, a retired police captain, pulled me aside. "Michael told me what happened 2 years ago. That took courage, what you did, just protecting my son." "No," he shook his head. "You could have called the cops immediately, let them handle it. Instead, you built a case strong enough that there was no ambiguity, no room for your son to doubt what he'd seen. That's not just protection, that's strategic love." I'd never heard it described that way before. Strategic love. It felt right. "You did the hard thing," he continued. "Most parents want to spare their kids pain. You understood that sometimes pain is the vaccine that prevents something worse." We watched Michael and Honor dancing, her head resting on his shoulder, both of them smiling in a way that looked effortless and real. "He's going to be okay," Honor's father said. "She'll make sure of it." I know, and I did know, because Honor wasn't Sarah. She wasn't performing. She'd been through her own trials. Michael had told me about her previous marriage, the messy divorce, the years she'd spent rebuilding her life. She understood that trust was built slowly through consistency and time. 3 months after the wedding, I received a letter. It came in a plain envelope with no return address, postmarked from a federal corrections facility in Arizona. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. The handwriting was neat, controlled. "Mr. Harrison, I know you have no reason to read this. I know I don't deserve your attention or forgiveness, but my therapist says I need to take accountability for what I did, so I'm writing this letter even though I'll probably never send it. I want to say I'm sorry, but that feels insufficient. What I did was calculated and cruel. I targeted your son because I'd researched your family and knew you had assets worth stealing. I manipulated Michael's loneliness and his desire for family. I invaded your home and violated your trust. The worst part is that I don't even have a good excuse. I wasn't desperate. I wasn't coerced. I chose this life because it was easier than working honestly. I chose to hurt people because I'd convinced myself they deserved it, that wealthy people, comfortable people didn't need what they had. Prison gives you a lot of time to think. I've thought about the moment you showed Michael that video. I've thought about his face when he realized what I was. I told myself for months that you were cruel to expose me that way, that you could have handled it privately, but you were right. Michael needed to see it. He needed to understand what I was capable of, not just hear it secondhand. And I hate you for that, because it means I can't even pretend I was a victim in any of this. I'm writing to tell you something you probably already know. There were others. Before Michael, I ran the same operation 3 times. 2 of them paid me to go away quietly. One of them died before I could finish the job. Heart attack, not my fault, but convenient. I tell you this because those men probably have families who still don't know what happened, who still think I was just a girlfriend who left. If you want to contact them, my lawyer has their information. I've signed releases allowing him to share it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to acknowledge this letter. But I'm in prison for 3 years, and when I get out, I'm going to be a 40-year-old woman with a felony record and no skills except manipulation. And I'm starting to realize that's exactly what I deserve. I destroyed your son's trust. I tried to destroy your security. I'm sorry, won't fix that, but it's all I have. Sarah Chen. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called Donald Pritchard. Sarah's lawyer contacted me last month, Donald said. She's given him permission to share information about her previous victims. She's cooperating with the FBI on a broader investigation into romance fraud schemes. It's possible she's trying to reduce her sentence, but the cooperation appears genuine. Should I contact the other families? That's your decision, Richard. But if you do, you should know one of those men committed suicide 18 months ago. His family never knew why. They thought it was depression. I felt sick. She didn't mention that. I don't think she knows. It happened after her arrest. I sat with that information for days. Then I drafted a careful letter to the FBI agent handling the case, explaining that I had information that might be relevant to the suicide investigation. I didn't contact the family directly. That felt like overstepping, but I made sure the authorities had everything they needed. Michael called me on a Tuesday evening in March. Dad, I got a strange call today. An FBI agent asked me questions about Sarah's methods, her patterns, how she approached me initially. I know. I gave them some information. They said she was involved in more cases than they'd originally thought, that she might be connected to a suicide in Oregon. Yes, Michael was quiet for a long moment. I could have been him, that guy in Oregon. If you hadn't caught her, if she'd taken everything and disappeared, I don't know what I would have done. But that didn't happen, because you didn't let it happen. Dad, I've been thinking about this a lot, about how close I came to disaster, about how you saw what I couldn't see, and I realized something. I never actually thanked you, not really. Michael, no, let me finish. You didn't just save your money or your assets, you saved my life, literally, because I don't think I would have survived losing everything and discovering I'd been that wrong about someone. It would have broken something fundamental in me. You're stronger than you think. Maybe, but I didn't have to find out because you were stronger first. After we hung up, I walked through my house, the same house I'd lived in for 40 years, the house where I'd raised Michael, the house where Margaret had died, the house that Sarah had tried to rob. It felt different now, not violated, not damaged, but somehow more solid. I'd protected it. I'd protected my son, and in doing so, I'd learned something about myself, that I was still capable, still sharp, still able to fight when it mattered. Anna gave birth to my first grandchild on a warm day in June. A girl named Margaret after her grandmother she'd never meet. I flew to Phoenix and held her in the hospital, this tiny perfect thing who had no idea what her father had survived to bring her safely into the world. Michael stood beside me watching me hold his daughter. She's going to need you, Dad. I want her to know her grandfather, to learn from you. I'm not sure a retired engineer has much to teach a baby. That's not what I mean. Michael's voice was serious. I want her to learn that protection isn't the same as control. That love sometimes means doing hard things, that you don't give up on people just because it's easier. I looked at him, my son, a father now himself, holding lessons I taught him without meaning to. I want to teach her, he continued, that her grandfather once saved her father's life by being brave enough to show him a truth he didn't want to see. That's a kind of love most people never experience. Your mother would have been proud of you, I said. She'd be proud of both of us. Now, sitting in my study on a quiet Sunday evening, I sometimes think about Sarah's letter, about her acknowledgement that I was right to expose her the way I did, about the man in Oregon who didn't have someone watching out for him. I think about the cameras still installed in my house, though I rarely check them anymore. About the lesson I learned, that protection requires vigilance, that love requires courage, and that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to let them be fooled. Michael visits twice a year now with Anna and little Margaret. Last month she took her first steps in my living room from her father's arms to mine, 4 steps that felt like miles. Grandpa's got you, Michael said, encouraging her forward. Go to Grandpa, he won't let you fall. And I didn't, because that's what I do, that's what I've always done. I watch, I wait, I protect. Not by controlling, not by smothering, but by being present enough to see danger coming and strong enough to do something about it. Sarah served her 3 years and was released 8 months ago. I heard through Donald that she's working as a waitress in Nevada, living in a halfway house, attending court-mandated therapy. I don't know if she's changed. I don't know if people like her can change, but I know this: my son is safe. My granddaughter is growing up in a home built on honesty. And I sleep soundly in a house that once was violated but now stands as proof that vigilance matters, that preparation pays off, and that a father's love, when combined with courage and strategy, can stop disaster before it destroys everything you've built. The cameras are still recording. The locks are still strong, and I'm still watching, not because I'm paranoid, not because I'm afraid, but because I learned something that night when I watched Sarah break into my safe. Evil relies on good people being too trusting, too polite, too afraid to act decisively, and I refuse to be that person. I am Richard Harrison. I'm a father, a grandfather, a widower, a veteran, and a man who once faced down a threat to his family with nothing but cameras, patience, and the willingness to let his son see an ugly truth, and I would do it all again without hesitation. Because that's what love looks like when it's willing to be strategic, to be uncomfortable, and to be brave. That's the lesson I hope Margaret learns someday, that her grandfather wasn't just a nice old man who told stories and gave hugs. He was a protector, a strategist, a man who understood that the greatest act of love is sometimes the willingness to cause pain in order to prevent catastrophe. And if she ever needs me, if someone ever threatens her the way Sarah threatened her father, I'll be ready. The cameras are still watching, and so am I.